There we go. Okay. So today is April 30th, year zero, almost May Day. So happy fuck the CCP day. Anyway, some interesting news and some interesting understandings. And we can jump right into it. So there's been a little tiny study came out of an American hospital experience with our bioweapon. This, I'll put a link in the description below to this little tiny study. This also confirms the stuff I was talking about the other day. And this study has a very interesting conclusion. Let me just draw it real quick. And their conclusion supports the vitamin or optimum vitamins as protection against infection idea. And so they took all of the patients in a hospital that presented, and they found that 100%, so 100% of those patients that ended up in ICU with the bioweapon who were under 75 years old had what they called VDI, okay? And so that's vitamin D insufficiency, all right? So insufficiency. So that's vitamin D insufficiency. So 100% of the people in the ICU who were under 75 years old had vitamin D insufficiency. There were some people in the ICU who were over 75 years old who did not have vitamin D insufficiency, but they may as well have, because the definition of the vitamin D insufficiency here was less than 20 nanograms per milliliter. So in my way of thinking, if you're over 75 years old, this actually is, in my definition, vitamin D insufficiency. In my definition, this level is vitamin D insufficiency for anybody of any age. So there were some people at 75 years of age or older who ended up in the ICU, but I'm saying that the way that they've defined this, we can't really say if these people had insufficient vitamin D or not, because they may have insufficient vitamin D for their age and their other medical conditions. So this right here is the key part, right? 100% of these individuals had vitamin D insufficiency, which means that those people that did not end up in ICU may have not ended up there due to having some higher level of vitamin D at the time that they were first impacted by the disease, or they had and vitamin D is key for your immune system, absolutely, no doubt about it. So this aspect of it confirms what I was saying in the previous video about critical numbers. There are critical numbers for vitamin D and vitamin C that basically say that from this level up, if you have these kind of numbers up of circulating vitamin D3 and vitamin C in either of these many forms, you won't become infected with it. That the bioweapon, you're hardened against the bioweapon. And so that's this was our critical understanding here. The levels were discussed in the previous video. This is the third. We're going to see more of these studies come out. This particular study was a quick and dirty on just patients in a single hospital, blah, blah, blah. And then they come to the conclusion that everybody should be assayed for vitamin levels as part of the process of entrance into a hospital for bioweapon treatment. So that was a good thing. And then the other thing is that we're now having an understanding of why vitamin C let me just make it a little bit clearer, less muddy. Okay, so we now have this understanding as to why vitamin C and D are so critical in the whole process of dealing with the bioweapon. And it has to do with the endothelial layer, okay? And this layer it lines all of your pipes, all of your arteries, all of your veins, all the way down into the capillaries. And it can be thought of as a dynamic, active signaling layer within your pipes. And it does all kinds of things, including moderate your blood pressure. Squeezing up if you don't have enough blood pressure and relaxing if you've got too much. And so it's the failure of the endothelial layer that shows up in Western society, in my opinion, as a result of the diet. But that's the only part that's my opinion, but it is the failure of the endothelial layer that shows up in Western society as typically hypertension or high blood pressure. And what we're seeing with the bioweapon is that the bioweapon assaults and removes the ACE2 receptor, which is involved in this reduction process and conversion of the it's involved in the hypertension process, okay? The process of squeezing the blood vessels or releasing them. And it does so interacting with various different chemicals through this process that brings up and can create, or does create, superoxidase. Also hydrogen peroxide, also these hydroxyl atoms. Two of these are radicals, and they cause problems. In order to deal with, it's all an electron donation process, right? It's all reduction or oxidation. We're talking about the creation of these things called radical oxygen species. When this process starts, it is what is robbing your body by the bioweapon's direction of the ability to deal with oxygen and effectively deal with oxygen. It involves a bunch of different minerals throughout the whole process, but the key ones are zinc, copper, manganese, and over here in a catalase process, iron. And it's this part right here that shows up as getting damaged with the pheromone issues, right? When all of this goes on. But here's the new understanding on this, that the bioweapon is not really attacking the lungs. The damage seen to the lungs and the subsequent pneumonia that's seen in the lungs are all side effects. That the pneumonia is simply opportunistic as a result of the damage that's been created by the virus becoming activated and expressing itself towards its true target, which is your blood system. And specifically within that, the endothelial layers that line all of your tubes of all of your blood flow. And these are the site of all of these different kinds of signaling molecules, chemical reactions, and so on. But basically what happens is that this stuff called SOD, superoxidase dismutase, which is like anti-superoxidase, which is one of these reactive oxygen species, which needs to be reduced in order to keep you healthy. And so your SOD system breaks down as a result of the attack of the bioweapon on the endothelial layer in which this is going on. And this is just when it attacks you from the ACE2 receptor. Now, it also has this capacity to attack the C147 and T cells, which are directly involved in the immune system. And the C147 receptor ends up in its own fashion, after its own fashion, contributing to this process of shutting down SOD, even though it's not coming through ACE2. So I don't want to say this. This is confirmatory of the supposition that vitamin C is a key to this, and we now know that vitamin D as well, because both vitamin C and vitamin D are intimately involved in the regulation of this process here of oxygenation versus reduction, of the redox is what they call it. Redox process that gives the whole body energy, that provides the ATP and the ADP transition phase, and produces the waste, which is the superoxidase, which needs to be handled. If the superoxidase isn't handled, you get a buildup of toxic waste in the cells everywhere, and you get you get hypoxia, which is the inability to have oxygen. You need the oxygen to get rid of this superoxidase, oddly enough, and convert to water and all these other processes that are simply not functioning because the bioweapon has attacked the ACE2 receptor, and the ACE2 receptor needs to actually receive this stuff called angiotensin II. And because it's not doing that, your blood vessels start squeezing and putting a lot of pressure on you. That causes the heart to really pound. That means the blood going into the lungs is causing actual physical damage, because it's coming in too fast and too hard, leading to the fibrosis, which is set upon by the opportunistic pneumonia. So it all builds, right? And it's all because the thing is attacking at the ACE2 level. There's a different set of complexes, of complex interreactions that come out when the bioweapon attacks you over here, and we don't know where else it may attack you. All right, so this area over here is still being explored. And there's other manifestations over here, like we're getting all of these reports of strange diseases affecting kids, all the way down to the blisters and discolorations on the toes and the other parts of the body. There's some reports of a strange of like a malaise, okay, a sort of a fainting kind of a condition where you don't really faint, you just don't have a whole lot of energy and you want to sleep a lot. And so this is now becoming associated with the bioweapon, and it's attacked through a different system, causing it all goes back to this ADP, ATP, triphosphate, diphosphate, adenine triphosphate, and diphosphate interaction that actually produces energy in all of your cells. And so the bioweapon is attacking at various different points and creating a surplus of symptoms, and we're now able to categorize some of the symptoms as to which area of the body they're affecting, through which of these various different systems are involved at the molecular biology level. Virology, by the way, turns out to be quite an interesting study, and I can't wait to get my textbooks because I can go a lot faster than sitting and watching videos on it. These videos for teaching the millennials are just too slow. Even speeded up, it's like, I read far faster than that. Anyway, though, so this is one aspect of this, okay? So we have the bioweapon, we now have a critical understanding in a critical grasp of how these things are starting to go down, at least in this one channel. And we know that it's not really a disease of the lungs, it's not influenza, that ventilators per se were probably not the first and best, or they were the first, but they were not the best approach to dealing with the hypoxia, because it's not really necessarily being caused by a pneumonia. Yes, there is pneumonia, but it appears to be opportunistic and incidental to the underlying damage to the lungs that are caused by the breakdown of the SOD system here, and the increase in hypertension, radically fast, by the way. And so the breakdown in the ACE2 system and the inability to deal with the hypertension aspects of it within the body account for walking along and then collapsing, and walking along and getting really weak, and having to grab lamp posts and stuff for support, and then collapsing. It's curious, but a high blood pressure leads to weakness, especially in the big muscles in the legs, in the thighs, and so on. So that now explains what's going on with that stuff. We also have a small update in the particle to PFU ratio for SARS-CoV-2, the virus particle, not the disease or anything, just the particle that is associated with the disease. And the PFU is the value of how infectious it is, how many particles it takes to become infectious. And we find that unlike things like papillomavirus, which takes a lot of the buggers to actually get you this, the SARS-CoV-2 as a bioweapon is way down on the list of a high PFU ratio to particles. So it ends up being very infective. So what they're actually doing is they're reporting on the number of infectious particles that can be found in surfaces or on expelled moisture droplets, or on other moist surfaces over time within various different environments. And some of the reports coming out now are showing 47 days later, they're still able to find and culture out discrete bioweapon particles. Now, when they do that, they find that far out, the infective rate is much lower than on newly contaminated surfaces. So at least we know that there is an aging component here. And so when they were doing the studies there, or the reports there, it's not a study, it was just some guys that had a very nice article that they'd written up on this. But basically over the course of time, the number of infective particles relative to the total number of particles drops. And so infective particles and total non-infective particles, so the totality of the particles, drop over time, and they degrade. And what the tentative conclusion was in this one report was that the non-infective particles were more stable, that they were the ones that were being found further out in time, because the ratio of non-infective particles to infective particles changes as time goes on within the total particle universe. So this is good news as well. It means that whatever is making the infective particle infective is able to be degraded by oxygen in the air, carbon dioxide, nitrogen, or sunlight, or some other unknown agent. So that was good news too. Now, there's something that's not really particularly super good news, but it does explain a lot of the COVID stuff, okay? So the bioweapon has, there's a potential that it has it has what's called two-hit kinetics, which is to say that every infective particle presented to the body adds up in the total viral load, and the size of the viral load is directly related to the impact on the body, the speed of the spread, and the total severity, all other things being equal. So, absent high vitamin D levels and so on. So if you were going to get it, the higher the viral load, the worse the outcome prognosis, basically. Thus, reducing viral load, if you're of a potential to get it, reducing viral load is really a key thing, because if you do get it, you'll get a much lower impact on the system. So in that sense, it doesn't behave like a regular disease, right? This is clearly more like radiation exposure, in the sense if you walk in and you spend 20 minutes into a nuclear reactor as opposed to 20 seconds, you're going to be that much worse off, that much faster. Because of, in oxidative radiation damage, of course, it's cumulative and so on. But basically, in a weird sort of a way, because of the burst effect of viruses and how they function, this is also cumulative in terms of its impact and damage on you and the potential for both. So that was it. Now on future history stuff, this explains, okay, so our current, you can already see it in the language now, but our current exposure to bioweapon globally has led already since November of, so about 6 months, 5 months, has led us to new definitions, new interest in bioindustry, which was one of the key factors that we saw within the data sets for Sci-Fi World. And that when we were in Sci-Fi World, we would have lots and lots and lots and lots of people doing weird shit with biology and be into the bioindustry. Well, we're there now. And it turns out that, things like CRISPR technology and these kind of things are hugely improved over my last experience with it 15 years ago, maybe 12 years ago. So it's going to get to the point where, you'll be able to have grade school kids inventing new critters, that sort of thing. Not necessarily the best of all worlds, given how whacked out humans are, but we got to make do with what we got. So anyway, so we are seeing already the language explosion into bioindustry, and everybody becoming interested in how the biology of the human works, the biology of around viruses. Virology has gone way up in terms of interest in that. We're going to start getting all new kinds of, even just in my brief examination of virology and just starting this course, I was thinking, well, why can't we use XYZ here in flip it and do it a different way and use that for this other purpose? And so we will soon see, I'm sure, a whole new range of bioindustry products that'll be coming on out. Just as recently there have been peptides as an alternative to drugs, or peptides as an alternative to allopathic chemicals extracted from nature and concentrated by titration into very high amounts, taken as though they were drugs. And so we've got peptides, who knows what else we'll be able to come up with, right? And the whole epigenetic stuff is just now being explored. Epigenetics is taking something external from into the body that causes a genetic change within the body once it's inside. And so chug a mushroom, excellent example. It's actually a regulating, immunomodulating complex of chemical compounds that causes genetic switches to be turned on and off as is appropriate to the condition, and it mediates as to which conditions it affects. So, so it's a highly complex epigenetic tool. We can just call it a tool. So anyway, we're going to see the bioindustry stuff go through the roof. We're already seeing an explosion of the language. I bet you that we see a lot of people want to get into the various different aspects of bioindustry, especially here in North America, yes, there will be the spillover into, the defense industries and anti-bioweapons and that sort of stuff, but we're also going to see people that just want to do positive things with bioindustry. And I'm not talking genetic modified critters necessarily. I'm talking about the other aspects of bioindustry, those things you can do at various different levels within biology that are not necessarily chimeratic, in the sense you're not necessarily creating something new by fusing other parts. And so we should see aspects of this become, well, they're already mainstream sort of daily news, but we should see aspects of bioindustry not necessarily directly related to bioweapon, although inspired by, kicked off by, initiated by the bioweapon attack. But we should see these things really moving by the time we get to the end of this year, the end of this calendar year. And we've got, so a couple of things here real quick. We've got Pure Sleep. My sleep product is back in at purebulk.com. I'll put a link into the description of this video. You can go and get it. It's the stuff I use for building up muscle mass as a result of the loss of the muscle mass from the cancer. And what it does is that it aids the sleep it's a sleep aid rather than being a sleep-inducing product, okay? So it provides you everything you need biochemically to sleep well. It gives you enough of the magnesium to have the magnesium-calcium balance. It's especially good if you take it with milks other than hemp milk. It can get really wonky with that. But it provides you the magnesium-calcium balance you need for quality, deep, sustained sleep, and it provides aspects. It provides you a soporific, and it provides other elements in there, other compounds in there to cause human growth hormone, which is most triggered and created at night, and is part of the restorative, repairing process of the body to really get boosted. Okay, so human growth hormone is more or less very easily mucked about with, and you can do it with peptides, you can do it with steroids, you can do it with other kinds of hormones, hormone precursors, all different kinds of herbs, and so on. But the reason and the way to do it is you have to, in my opinion, you've got to harmonize with it. And human growth hormone is naturally excreted or created while you sleep. And it's most naturally used while you sleep. And the body can't really repair during the day. So I have a damage that I got on the end of my foot when I smashed my toe last night into a chunk of steel I didn't know was in this little bit of earth I was walking over. And so I get a smashed up toe. And it's going to instantly go into, basically the body's going to start triaging. It's going to inflame around it to keep it rigid so I don't cause further damage. It's going to try and sort things out and cause the bleeding to stop and all this other sort of thing. But all of those are just temporary. They're not really healing. They're simply to, first aid, stop further damage. And then that night is when the healing process starts. And so I'm just saying this anecdotally that I take my sleep aid stuff, my Pure Sleep last night, and this morning, the toe is significantly better. Now, it's going to be significantly better anyway because the body heals at night. But I'm saying that incrementally, perceptively, and a small percentage-wise, my sleep aid, because it provides a lot of human growth hormone, which is what a major component in the repair of the body, so it doesn't provide the human growth hormone. It causes the body to want to produce the human growth hormone and put it to use. And so you repair a lot. So I found that since I've been using this approach a year and a bunch of months, that is the sleep product, maybe 18 months or something like that. But since I've been using it, I have no need for any kind of analgesics. I don't take aspirins, I don't take ibuprofen or any of that sort of stuff. And I don't really need it. I can stress out, use my rings, use a punching bag, work up problems with the muscles, that sort of thing. But I know that when I have my Pure Sleep product that night, and have my little cup of stuff, and then a half an hour later I go to sleep. And when I wake up in the morning, those aches and pains are gone because the human growth hormone part. Now, as I say, I was using it initially and had designed it initially for muscle rebuilding because I was so distressed at the loss of muscle due to the cancer. And it's rebuilt it. So I had gotten all the way down to 138 pounds. Of that 138 pounds, some significant portion was fat put on because I was forced into a high-carb diet by the cancer. Now I'm up at 160 pounds. I'm on a carnivore diet, very little fat on my body, and I've regained all of that weight in muscle. And I'm very pleased about this. At 67 years old, it's very hard to gain back muscle mass. There's also some suggestion in my appreciation for the use of the product for this period of time that it also significantly boosted the ability of my body to produce and retain free testosterone. So I'm not using any kind of testosterone replacement, but I have very high testosterone levels again through a long coordinated process, through the whole cancer and so on. I'm not putting the testosterone values down to this product alone, but I'm saying that I have the human growth hormone being predictably produced every night for me that I take the stuff, my little drink, reduces the need for the conversion of the testosterone through this other process in order to produce the human growth hormone. Because it can be triggered through a number of different chemical pathways, one of which is by basically reducing your testosterone in order to plump up the human growth hormone part to help repair the body, in a crude fashion. My explanation anyway. So Pure Sleep is back. There's a link down there. It's 60 days Saks. We're like everybody else. We're constrained by supply chain issues. So this will probably be the way it's going to go for a while. And let's see. Oh, okay. So one last thing was the I am going to, a couple of things here real quick. Okay, so I'm going to be on with Paul Cottrell and George Webb on Paul's channel this Saturday at noon Eastern. And we're going to be discussing the bioweapon stuff from a geopolitical and an economic viewpoint, not biology so much. And also, I'm going to try and get back to the Fun with Magnets series and the Boscovich because of my recent plunge back into Boscovich, the translation of De Lumini, and the recent release by the military of the UFO videos. And there's a little tiny, I don't know if it's in the old videos or not, but in these new videos, you are actually able to see protuberances underneath the Tic Tac UFO, and I was going to explain what those are and how they're being used, and to explain how Bob Lazar was wrong about what element 115 does. Okay, so I'll get to that. I'll make another video about this, why Bob Lazar is correct about element 115 and the propulsion without inertia and all of that kind of stuff, but he's wrong about the mechanism that is actually involved in what the element 115 does. It doesn't really bend space or any of that kind of stuff. That's a wonky concept as to what it's actually doing, and we can now establish this more clearly off of the recently released UFO videos, or UAPs, or whatever the fuck they're calling them. So anyway, so Pure Sleep, it's available. SARS-CoV-2 has cumulative load issues with infections, but the good news is the infective particles die off sooner than the non-infective particles, so our tests are likely to be skewed over time in terms of surfaces towards less infective particle ratios. Yeah, somebody's here. Anyway, and we're going to get a global explosion into the bioindustry world. That's basically what I wanted to talk about. There's all kinds of other shit going on, but I don't need to waste your time at this point. Plus, I got stuff to do and my toe hurts. So I'll see you guys. Bye.